ever since my local car crew found my YouTube channel, I've been getting all sorts of call outs. People thinking that they're faster than me and all this other stuff. But the problem is that I'm having shifting problems with this Toyota R150 transmission. So I need to put a new transmission in it, and I'm thinking about going with this one that I got sitting over here, which I believe went to a Vortec V6. I think it's a Turbo 350. I am not sure about that. I don't know how to look it up or anything like that. But I do have, from my Toyota V8 swap season 1 and 2, I still have the drive shaft when it was two-wheel drive, because this is a two-wheel drive, but this is a four-wheel drive truck. So I'm going to put a two-wheel drive automatic transmission into a manual four-wheel drive truck. The length and everything is going to be the same, so I shouldn't have to change anything as far as that goes. It should be as simple as just take the old transmission out, put the new transmission in, bolt it up, done. Should be that simple. Now, the reason I'm having to do it is because this transmission is giving me between 1 and 2 full seconds of shifting between each gear. When this thing's under power, when I'm driving around normal, everything's cool. Daily driving, it works like a champ, but anytime that it's under power and I'm racing and there's the strain going into the input shaft, it's just something about it that makes the transmission want to fight me, and I've been continually having to adjust the clutch back and forth and try to find little shortcuts to try to make it shift faster. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it only works for a limited time. So I'm going to give the automatic transmission a shot. I'm going to be taking away the four-wheel drive advantage that this thing has on the street, and I'm going to be putting in the two-wheel drive, but it's going to be giving me the automatic shifting, so that should be an advantage. Disadvantages, advantages, but this transmission's been working well, pretty good so far. But unlike the 22RE, the W56 transmission that I used to have, and I had 3 small block 350s hooked up to that thing, and I had the 22RE 4-cylinder hooked up to it, and I also had a 454 big block hooked up to it. The 4-cylinder transmission, the W56 I believe it's called, was able to withstand all the torque and power from 5 different engines. But the 4-wheel drive V6 rated transmission that's in this truck now can't withstand the power that the LS engine is producing for whatever reason. Maybe it's more torque, maybe it's more power, whatever the reason may be. So I got to go with this transmission. Now, if you're wondering why I don't swap it with this 4-wheel drive 4L60E that I took out of the Tahoe, the reason is because that needs to be rebuilt. And again, I don't have the money to do that. What I do have the money to do is take this free transmission, throw it into the truck, and see if it works. If it does, I'm going to get some racing videos out of this. If it doesn't work, this video is never going to see the light of day. So let's give it a shot. Step 1, jack up the truck, which I've done. Step 2, block the tires so that the truck doesn't roll when I disconnect the drive shafts, because I don't have an e-brake. Step 3, transmission jack. Now this is the part that's going to suck. I have to disconnect these coolant lines because I've got 2 radiators, and the coolant lines are going under the transmission. And I don't know how long it's going to take to drain 2 radiators, but I got a giant paint bucket here to catch all the coolant, so hopefully it doesn't take too long. And just for the hell of it, I'll pull the radiator cap so that it drains a little bit faster and there's no back pressure being built up. So while I'm waiting on that to drain, I'll get 2 14mm wrenches and take off each one of the drive shafts. And we'll take off the front drive shaft. And the rear drive shaft. And now with both drive shafts loose, put the truck in neutral. And now we can rotate the drive shaft to get to the other bolts. Get off. my knife. Now we position the jack. Now get a 17 millimeter. And that's going to be for the cross member bolts. $10mm. And now we're going to pop the cork on the hydraulic lines for the slave cylinder that's on the side of the bell housing. And you might find it easier to get to it by coming through the engine bay. And a 15mm socket. Strap the transmission to the jack. Then we remove the shifters. Yes, shifters as in plural. And now with the transmission strapped up and hooked to the rear hitch receiver, I'm just going to crank on this sucker a few times and pull it loose. Well, it's loose. It's just getting hung up on something. Finally. Well, you were a good transmission. You just couldn't handle the power of the LS. So, sun's going down. I'll pick this up tomorrow. Transmission tunnel opening for the shifter. There's your pressure plate, and one of the fins is actually sticking out down there on the bottom. And I see this little bolt right here is loose. So that probably contributed to the hard shifting problem. But regardless, I'm going to give this automatic a chance anyway. Well, damn, that wasn't the only bolt that was loose. I'm thinking there probably isn't even a problem with that transmission at all. I mean, that bolt was loose, but it wasn't hanging out like this one was and like that one was. So that was probably the whole shifting problem right there. I don't know about you, but that looks like pressure plate failure to me. That tooth right there. Sticking up higher than the rest. And it's not even bolted into the car. So two issues now. One, the input shaft. I need to make sure that that's not going to hit anything when I actually put it up there. I have the pilot bearing, or pilot bushing, I can't remember what the hell it's called, that's sticking out of the crankshaft that was designed to fit the Toyota transmission. I don't know if I need that, or if I can take it out, or if it'll fit that, or whatever. It doesn't look like it's going to fit it, so I will probably have to pull that thing out of there. Then I've got these transmission lines here, and I need to run those. I need to buy a transmission cooler, which is like a miniature radiator. Now what that does is it allows the coolant, the oil and everything that's inside this thing to keep the transmission cool so that it's able to shift. If it gets hot, it's going to stop shifting, it's going to start misshifting, it's going to burn bands, all that kind of crap. So that's another one of the downsides, the pitfalls of an automatic transmission. So if you're going from a manual to an automatic, you're going to need a transmission cooler. So in the meantime, what I can do is put the 168 tooth flex plate back on the end of the crankshaft. So there's the pilot bearing or pilot bushing or whatever the hell it is. That opening in the center is just big enough to fit the end of the input shaft on the Toyota R150 transmission. But as I was thinking about it, the torque converter for the automatic transmission is going to sit on the outside of this. So that input shaft that's on the automatic is going to go into the torque converter. So that isn't coming past the rim of the flex plate here. So that'll be fine. I can just leave that where it is. And then if I ever want to put that back in there and go get another pressure plate, then it'll be able to work. My only concern at this juncture is the starter. It almost doesn't look like it's going to be able to clear the teeth so that the Bendix can come out and actually turn it. If that is the case, and I can't use my high torque mini starter, I do have another option. And that's that I have two backup old style starters. So if that one doesn't work, if I'm not able to use it, at least I've got these two, and hopefully one of them at least works. I got them from the same place that I found the Vortec V6 and that transmission that I'm going to be putting in, so fingers crossed that one of them works. But if that is the case, for whatever reason, that automatic transmission doesn't work and one of those starters doesn't work and I got to throw this transmission back in there, I'm not doing that. What I would rather do instead is that I'll take that 5.3 and I'll shove it in this four-wheel drive Toyota. So I got some good news and I got some bad news. The good news is I did find out what kind of transmission this is. Unfortunately, the identification little tag right here didn't tell me anything. But actually, with the help of monstertransmission.com, and I'll post a link in the description to their transmission identifier page, the TH400 is what I've got here. And it's actually pretty much identifiable because of this little square right here. No other transmission has that. And it's got the little vacuum solenoid here. So that little correlation there means that I have the TH400, which is really good news for the application of what I'm trying to do with it, which is racing. Now, a lot of guys, they will prefer the TH400 as opposed to any other transmission for racing. The bad news is that the torque converter that I was going to try to use from the, what is essentially a 700R4, the 4L60E here, I was going to try to use that torque converter, and unfortunately, torque converters are not interchangeable. So I found that out. It has a completely different input shaft on it, so I'm going to have to get a TH400 specific torque converter. More money. So with the flex plate out, what I'm going to have to do is take the torque converter, put it on here, and then try to precisely measure it. I don't want to use these existing holes. I want to try to drill this hole that's here. I want to put it right here. And then for the one that's on the other side, I want to put that there. And I want to put the one that's over here right there. So I'm going to have to go through on each side and precisely measure it. And I mean precisely. If I'm off by anything more than a couple of millimeters, the truck's going to shake violently while the engine's building up speed. And anything more than that, the transmission's not going to line up. So I have to take my time and make sure I do this right. Because if I screw this up, my only alternative to this flex plate, I think, is going to be having to spend $170 for an advanced adapters one. I might be able to find one. Hope like hell that the bolt pattern here is the same on all Chevy crankshafts. I'm not sure if it is or not, but I might be able to get one that specifically goes to maybe a 350 small block that goes to a TH400. I might get lucky and that might be the case. If not, I need to take my time again, drill out these holes, make sure they line up, everything else, and take this project really, really slow and cautious. Because with this aligned in the center, you can see that each one of the bolt holes is actually shifted further over toward the outside. Now that will be plan B. If I screw this up where I'm going to be drilling the holes in between each one of these holes. If I put one here, put one here, put one here, if I screw that up, then I'm going to come through and I'm going to attempt to hone these out. But right now I'm going to try to just do my own bolt holes. You can do it however you want, but I'm telling you how I'm going to do it. And if I screw it up, then I still have that other option. But there's one more problem I didn't want to have happen. I ordered this on Amazon. It said on the website that this fits a TH400, but for some reason it says on here that it fits 200, 700, 4L60, even 4L80 transmissions. Now, these actually do fit the 4L80, 4L60 torque converter, but not the 400. So I'm not sure, but I think these are M10 by 1.5 15 millimeter. So I will see if I can dig through my bolts here and find something that fits, and then I will at least be able to look at the threads and figure out what size I actually need. Well, that one fits, sort of. It's kind of loose, so it might need to be just a little bit bigger. But we can check the thread size. And that's a 3/8 with a 16 thread. For whatever reason, they sent me metric instead of standard. Now this one looks like it'll work. Mr. Gasket 6715. It's a 3/8 16, but it's only ½ an inch long. I'm not sure that'll be enough to fit. You take into consideration how thick this is. It's about ½ an inch. But then you take into consideration the thickness of the flex plate, and it's maybe 1/8 of an inch. Yeah, that might work. So I placed an order for the new bolts. The only thing that's got me concerned is, I mean, look how this thing is attached, this tab right here. I don't know how well these are welded on, or if maybe they weld it from the other side or something before they weld this seam all the way around. But those don't look very strong to me. I'm wondering if maybe I should take this opportunity while I've got it out of the vehicle and put some extra weld on each one of these. Or if I should not mess with it. Alright, I got it back up in there. And the bolt holes actually line up. Now I've got my new torque converter bolts, and I put thread lock on them. And these ones are 14 millimeter. I don't know if you're going to be getting the same ones that I got. But I'll put the part number on here so that you guys can find them on Amazon if you need those too. It's been so long since I worked on this thing. All the needing parts and everything else stalling out the project. Let's see, what do I still need? Transmission fluid. I don't know how much transmission holds, and I don't know how much torque converter holds. I'll look that up online, put that on the screen here. I'm going to need coolant, because I don't have that anymore. Let's see, I need to hook the battery cables back up and hook up the drive shaft, and that should be it. Yeah, I still got to put the oil cooler up front, and then I got to get a hose to go to it. That should be it. I think there's only maybe 5 things left on my to-do list. So I got a multi-pass oil cooler here. I'm going to put this right in front of where I've got my electric fan. It's on this side of the radiator, so that'll help keep that cool. Then I'll use those plastic mounts. Came in a little package. Attach that to the radiator. Drill a couple of holes so I can run the hoses through the radiator support wall. Now with the front bumper off, I can drill some holes there for the hoses. I'll tell you one thing for damn sure. Next car project that I build, I'm going to make sure that there's no sharp edges, no rusted steel going on, no sharp bits of plastic and everything, because personally, I'm about sick of this shit happening. Oh, one more thing I forgot is, since I've checked that off my list, I still now have to put another thing onto it. I need to make a shifter, so that's just 5 things left on my to-do list, unless I'm forgetting something else. Yeah, I had to do this a little bit redneck, but I've got my dipstick coming up through here inside the cab. But hey, just because it's redneck, I mean, that's the very definition of making it work. Let's see, I still got this vacuum line I gotta hook up to something. I got the lines run. Now, supposedly on the TH400, the bottom line is the feed line, and the top line is the return line. And I've got the feed line coming to the top of the oil cooler, that way it's gravity assisted coming down instead of trying to pump it in through here and then having to force it all the way up. So the feed line I have coming to the top, and the return line I'm going to have going back to the bottom, to the top one over there. Alright, our lines are run. Again, this is the feed line, this is the return line. Make sure that they're not bent. Don't have any kinks going on. Nope, they don't. They're running back, okay. The only thing I still have to do, put that starter back up there, bolt it back up, drive shaft, and what I'm gonna do now is go buy some automatic transmission fluid and coolant. Alright, I don't have the shifter hooked up yet. I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do with that, but I got the fluid in. Power on. Alright, fuel pump. Force of habit. First thing I did was push the clutch pedal and that didn't do anything, so foot on the brake. Vehicle is in park. Where the hell's my start button? There it is. Is there anything I'm forgetting? Oh, yeah, that's right. There we go. It's been a while since I've driven this thing. I filled up the transmission about halfway, so that's about 6 quarts. I'll let the engine circulate it and let the transmission get warmed up and everything, and then I'll continue to pour it in until it's up to operating temperature, and then I've got the 12 quarts in there. Well, this will be some shit if this works. I present to you the all-new TH400 chain shifter. Okay, here goes something. Foot on the brake. I didn't expect that to last. Okay, it's in. It's in gear. But it doesn't have enough fluid yet. So there you have it, swapping a manual to an automatic. Hope you enjoyed it, hope it was educational.